And then we'll talk about how they combined each other. The number 5 habit, or number 4, it doesn't matter which order it is, but the habit that is now, number 5 is think what? Win, win. Think, win, win. You're big enough to do this. Come up here a minute, will you? Jeremy, you're going to be my man here. Think, win, win. Have we done this before? You've seen this demonstration? This happens a lot. But would you say before the audience, say, I am a loser? Go ahead.
I'm a loser.
I want to get him prepared because we're going to have a muscle game. And I want to get him prepared to know that he's going to lose. Okay? He's going to lose big time to me. Okay? Now, you've done this before, right? You know how to do this. You know, you don't want to win like that. You know how to do it.
Throw you off balance.
Well, no, just to go down like this to do that. Okay.
Okay, I can do that.
And I want you. Would you give us $1 for who wins?
Yeah.
Would you give us $1 for every time I win? Because I'm going to beat him more than once. I'm going to beat him at least once. You give me. You'd do it, wouldn't you? Come on, say it. Okay. Proactive. Okay. Now, I want somebody to kind of give it. You got to watch on. I want you to. We're going to have a time thing this year, and I want you to know that for every time you win, he's going to give you $1. Every time I win, you're going to give me $1. Okay. Okay. You ready now? So you got ready to. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Somebody say go.
Go.
Are you counting?
Okay, now stop a minute. Now we do it another way. What was the attitude he had? Win what? Win lose. I knew he was going to beat me, but I wanted to think he's a wimp. I might let me beat once. But what would happen if he thought win-win? Now he still won a lot, but what would happen if he thought win-win? And if he knew that every time I went that way, he let me go that way. How many times could we win if we did this? And we get $1 each time, okay? He got 20 the other time, now he gets 50, okay? And I get 50. Does that make sense? Thinking win-win is not natural in a non-Christian society. Why, Brother Matt? How come you're a cross-country guy? Why is win-win not a natural tendency to you cross-country guys? Because what happens if you win? If you win the race, what happens? I got to lose, don't I? If we're all running a race, if we all run together and you win the $1, and all of us lose. Now that's how we're raised. That's how society raised us. We're in this competitive world where it's a win-lose atmosphere. The minute he caught on, though, the fact that if he let me win as well, that we could both win twice as much, because I wasn't resisting him winning. I wanted him to win as much as he could. I wasn't trying to hold back. And the minute that we did that, we both started to win a lot of money. We became very successful. That's win-win. It won't work in a non-Christian society. Well, I don't know the other races. Maybe the others will too. But in our society, if we don't think eternal and celestial, this principle doesn't work. But remember, all highly effective people think win-win. Now go back to number 4, the empathetic listening. The empathetic listening says the reason why you begin to listen to people with your heart, because what are you going to hear from your spouse, from your business partner, from your counselors in the elders' quorum presidency, if you listen to them? If you listen very long, what are they going to probably end up telling you? Now go to lesson number 5. what are they going to end up telling you? What winning means to them. Your spouse, if you listen long enough, will tell you, honey, what I really want to do today is this. This is what I really want to have. This is the kind of home I want to have. This is the kind of family I want to have. And if you listen to her or him long enough and really listen with your heart, you will then hear what winning means to her. And in the process, if you then begin to think what in a win-win atmosphere, you're going to say to yourself, first seek to understand what she's saying to me, then I'm in a better position to help her understand what winning means to me. That make sense? And if we can ever get that happening, if we can get that to begin to happen, we create number 6 habit, which is synergy. Now, what is synergy? You know what synergy is? What is synergy? There's a famous math, okay, try it.
The greater the whole is greater than the.
There's a great mathematical formula that goes with that, isn't there? 1 plus 1 equals anything greater than 2. 1 plus 1 equals 10. 1 plus 1 equals 50. Whatever it is, 1 plus 1 equals anything greater than 2. The sum of the sum of the parts is bigger. What did you just say? That's what the thing is. The sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. The whole, the entity that you create, this synergistic family, synergistic business, synergistic ward that you create is bigger than the sum total of the parts. Because you have unleashed in a synergistic relationship, you've unleashed all the powers that I have in a win-win atmosphere. I like you because you're trying to help me win. I'm releasing all the powers that you have because I like you because I want you to win. I make you to win, so I unleash all of your powers, and together we start liking each other because we realize that we really are trying to help each other win, but we're not trying to do it at the fact that we don't want to win too. So when we finally understand that winning is not losing, winning is not giving up, it's not saying, okay, Matt would say, I want you guys to win now, I'm not going to run the race. When you really do it in a celestial way, Matt will want all of us to win at the same time, to increase our time and all win in a 3-minute mile. It's about what I run now. And my bike at my very top speed. Pedaling really, really fast on my girl's bike. Because my man's bike was stolen. Are you with me? Synergy is the ultimate goal of every organization you belong to. Let me tell you 2 or 3 quick stories that I hope will illustrate this. First of all, it's the goal of every family. Every marriage wants to have a synergistic marriage when each other you listen to and understand what winning means to the spouse, and you have created an atmosphere of listening to find out what that means. When you can do that, my friends, when you realize that just because you're the male, that doesn't mean you're the automatic head guy to have all the answers. That means you're automatically in charge of making sure there's a listening post where you're going to listen to what your spouse has to say, and together you're going to create something that works. And when you do that in a win-win atmosphere, all of a sudden you are creating something that's synergistic. Think about what a marriage does do. When you talk about 1 plus 1 equals 3 or more, realize that not one of you in this room by yourself can make another life. But together, as a married couple, you can create life. You create something far bigger than the sum total of the parts. Now, that's synergy. That's win-win. That's using all of your strengths and all of her strengths, and together you create something that you could never have done alone. I worked in a company one time, and it was the Franklin International Institute when I knew it, and then Franklin Quest. And you all know that. I've shared this with you. But I worked in a company that was run, I wish it had some women on this story. I apologize, you sisters. This is not a good story in that one regard. This was a company that was run by 11 high priests. 11 great men, I thought. The 10 men I got to work with were really good people. They were strong leaders. They were self-starters. They were proactive. They were win-win people. And we had a boss. We had a man who will be here in the spring, by the way, to the Conference of Champions. Hiram Smith will be here to speak to you in the next conference we have. He'll be here, and he's going to come and share some of his stories. But he was a man who was the most abundant mentality I probably ever worked around. He wanted everybody to win. He gave every secretary in the place got a stock option. I mean, when we went public in 1992, every secretary who'd been there from the start, I mean, I'm talking about the beginning entry people. Most of them became millionaires with stock options that he had given them out from his own pocket mostly to give them a chance to have a piece of the rock if it ever works. When it worked big. Everybody got a lot of money out of it. But his whole philosophy was, we're going out to the corporate world, because we were teaching the #1 time management course taught on the planet Earth during that time, and we're going into the biggest corporations of the world. And his philosophy was, and he had us all converted to it, that we were going in to soften the beaches. Now, what do you mean by that? He meant by that we were going to go in, and in a corporate environment, let's say all you are the big guns of the ABC Corporation, before we're finished with you, what are we going to teach you? The Franklin what? Franklin Pyramid. At the bottom of that, we're going to tell you how to go home and write it, you Mr. CEO, you big shot, $1 million worker bee. What are we going to tell you how to draw the bottom down here? It's what it's going to say. I am. May not say I'm like God yet. We haven't got you that far. But we will teach you the old lesson like my guy in Merrill Lynch, remember? You saved my life story. We'll teach you how to organize your life and prioritize your life. And when you get through, once you've done this and put your values in line, some of you white shirt guys come bopping down the street one day and get in the locked gates of all these CEO multi-millionaire Lamonis. And you knock on their door one night when they just got home from work in their limousine and you say, hi, I'm a representative of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Can I step in for a minute? And you step in and you share with them, and before you're done, you start talking about values, about how the family is really important. And they say, you know what, I think I've heard this before somewhere. Somehow I've heard this before. And they don't put it together, but their heart puts it together. The Spirit touches them. Why? Because they've had their heart softened and prepared when our trainers, most of them who weren't LDS, went into that corporation and trained them how to become a value-driven person, how to make their productivity points days of personal productivity, and how to organize and take control of their lives. And then you missionaries come along and say, now let me teach you what the real value is. And all of a sudden their heart clicks and their spirit says, hey, listen to this, something's clicking. Well, he had us convinced, 11 of us, that we were preparing the beaches. We're all high priests, all elders in the church. And not let me just bury my testimony about it. We came that close to creating a Zion company. It was so close. I mean, I had moments. I wrote an article about it when we went up to Sun Valley, Wyoming every year to do our strategic planning meetings. And I remember writing an article about the fact that we were at Sun Valley, these 11 high priests and their wives, and we were strategizing how to change the world through the Franklin story. And I remember feeling, as I sat around that room with those 22 people and our wives, and I remember feeling, you know, this has got to be as close as I've ever felt in a business environment to what Zion would be like. But you know what? We didn't do it. We didn't create it. We failed. You know why? Because before we're through, because we're still lived in a compensation-driven world and goal-setting world, and because we were all competing with our own areas of expertise and doing our own kind of stuff, before we're through, we all had a compensation plan that meant that if I can win just a little bit more, if I can take a little bit bigger piece of the business for the sales and training division, then the stores, even though they're going to do well, if I do a little bit better than he does, my bonus will be bigger. So in the end, the little selfish, greedy whelps that's in all of us ended up costing us what we could have done something that had probably never been done before in the business world. And before we really got our act together, we had merged with the Covey people and then merged, and we all kind of went away. But I'll never forget how close we came. I'll never forget that we came as close as I think it's ever been done. And we might have had a few more years, we might have pulled it off. A real Zion company. One that you look forward to, you want to work at every day. Because why? Because everybody's out in the win-win atmosphere. They're all trying to help each other. They're all listening to say, how can the sales department help the stores? And how can the sales and training people help the marketing people? And on and on. Anyway, I just want you to know that even though we talk about this religiously and in the church world, you could leave here today, my friends, if you really catch on to it and be the young people that create the first Zion companies ever built out there. I'd love to see you do that. Let me tell you another church story. It's a churchy story now. One other time that we really came close to this. So we had a chance one time. You remember I told you, maybe I didn't, in Scotland during our mission, we had a 40-day feed of faith. Did I tell you this? We had a time when David Haight and his honchos organized a 40-day experiment with perfection. Gave us all a calendar and had it on it every day. We're going to have a feat of faith, F-E-A-T, of faith. We're going to live under the operation of faith for 40 days and 40 nights, living a perfect law. We'll read every day. We'll study faith. Every day we'll read about faith. Every day we'll live a perfect set of laws. Every day we'll go out exactly on time or before time and do perfect lives for 40 days. With the promise from Elder Haight that if we would do that, we would watch a miracle happen in our mission before the 40 days are over. And he converted us to the fact, but we had to be exactly obedient for 40 days and have faith enough to ask that we could have a miracle happen in our mission. It was a time when the Western European missions had declined because they had the kiddie dip program, and that was over now, and now they were baptizing real people. And so we had to go to work to find real people, okay? We couldn't baptize tombstones anymore, and no more baseball teams. Had to be real live people with moms and dads and kids. And most of the missions weren't doing it very well. David Haight said we can baptize just as many people, real people, if we're willing to have the faith to ask Heavenly Father for that blessing. So we lived for those 6 weeks in the perfect mode as much as we ever could. And we watched the numbers gradually climb for the first 5 weeks. We just kind of up a couple, nothing big time, you know, but we were a long ways away from our goal till the last week. It was one of these building, you had to have the faith. He said, don't give up, my friends. You'll reach this if you just have the faith. Don't quit. Keep working. And when that last week hit, that 6th week of that 40-day program, after the Saturday night count was over of the baptisms we had in our mission, our little half of Scotland, just half of Scotland, had out-baptized all of the missions in Western Europe combined. It was the most incredible week's baptism that anybody had ever seen. It was, I mean, I'm talking about all the missions of Europe and all the other missions of England and the Scottish and Irish and all the other missions combined. We out-baptized them all. It was the greatest miracle I've ever witnessed of a man who promised us 180 missionaries what you could do if you only have the faith to live that way and ask for it. Well, that's half the story. The other half was, now we're talking 1981, 82, just in Simi Valley, California, which is now 22 years down the road from when that happened in Scotland in 1964. And a young stake president said to his counselors, you know what we ought to do in this stake? We ought to have a 40-day feed of faith. We ought to have a day when we have 40 days left of this stake living a perfect life. They thought, boy, that's a creative idea. Boy, you're really creative. And I said to myself, no, I'm a copier. I really copy well. I remember 22 years ago what happened when a leader stood up and said, hey, here's what could happen if you'll have enough faith. And so we went to Matt Golden's parents and all the rest of the members of the 11 wards, and we asked them months and months and months in advance to get prepared to have a temple experience, to come together to have a temple experience one night in October 16th, I think, and have everybody come. We want everybody to come. Not just that, we're not going to have just a temple night. We want everybody in the stake to come that can get a recommend. And then we called the temple up, the Los Angeles Temple. And we said, Los Angeles Temple, we're coming down to have a steak night. And they said, you know what, President, we have steak nights here every night, so you just come along. When you want to come, you just come along. And I said, no, you don't understand. We're all coming. Oh, yes, President, that's really good. We understand you. Every stake president said that. Just have them come on down. We'll be ready for you. They'll tell us how to do our job. And I just said one more time, I said, I just want to warn you that we're all coming. It isn't going to be a normal steak night. And so we kept talking. They never told them what we're going to do, and the state never told them a thing. We just said, please have the faith to clean your calendar off that night and come with us and have a temple night together. We'll have a chapel session first, and then we'll have a session, and then we'll go home and then meet the next night in the stake center and give you the program. Well, the night finally came, and it was a Thursday night, and they started to show up, and we filled up. Some of you have been to the LA Temple. They have a huge, big room, the chapel area. They filled up that jam-packed. They were down the halls. They were outside. They were all through the place trying to listen to this little introduction. They weren't ready for us at all. We were till 3 o'clock in the morning getting everybody through the temple that night because they didn't have enough anything for us. But it was the most incredible evening of our life. And then the next night we gave them all, quote, a calendar, much like the one we'd had 22 years ago, only had different dates on it and a different prophet on the front. But it was still the same thing. We're going to live a perfect life for 40 days. We're going to read the Book of Mormon out loud as a family in 40 days, out loud, every one of you. You were way too young, weren't you? And but I know you asked your mom and dad if they remember this, Matt. And then live at 100% home teaching, a temple experience in the middle, a temple experience at the end, everything perfect. Never miss a meeting, never miss anything. Just have a missionary experience, do this, this, and this, and have it live a perfect life for 40 days. With the idea that if we can do it for 40 days, we could be translated as a stake. We could become a Zion, the first Zion stake. And my people are called Zion, for they're one heart, one mind, dwell in righteousness, and no poor among them. That was our theme. And that night at the temple, we had 747 people come. There were only 26 people in the stake who could have been there who weren't. And each one of those we identified almost without exception. They were either having a baby, and that had to be within 2 hours of having a baby, or they weren't excused. It's a joke. They were having a baby, or they were deathly ill, or they were in they're totally gone. We had a woman who flew back from the LDS Mormon choir in Southern California. It was in Mexico that weekend. She flew back to be at the temple night and then flew back to Mexico in the middle of the night so she wouldn't miss the choir tour but wouldn't miss the temple experience. That's how dedicated and anxious they were to be there. And the 40-day experience was the greatest experience I've ever felt as a church in my life. We came so close to doing what Enoch had done as a stake. Now, you know what we found, though? It ended on November 25th, about Thanksgiving time, close to Christmas. And we said, you know, we've come this close. Let's give another 40-day program and push it to let's be just like Enoch. Let's get taken up. Let's do it. So we promoted another 40-day program. But you know what we found? We couldn't sustain it. It was impossible to sustain in a temporal world the state of condition that we were trying to live. The people, they finally went into the state of collapse almost and realized they had to go back to work. They had to start paying the bills. We'd forgotten about step number 4 of Moses 7 and 18. Remember what it was? One heart, one mind, dwelling in righteousness, and no poor. We hadn't emphasized that. We hadn't emphasized that we've got to also take care of our temporal problems. We've got to solve those problems as well as becoming like God spiritually. And we hadn't focused on it. If we'd done it again, we'd have focused on that and said, we got to have balance. You know, you got to do both. But we'd focused so much on reading the book and doing the things that we just couldn't sustain it that strong. But you go talk to your mom and dad, and anybody who lived during that period, that lived in that valley, they'll tell you the greatest spiritual moment in their life probably will be that 40-day experience. It was for me. And my point is, we nearly created a synergistic stake, all based on celestial principles, in trying to live that kind of a life. Why do I tell you that? Because it can happen. You can create that. And we don't have time, it's taking too long telling stories. We don't have time for number 7, but I'll just tell you what it is and you think about it. It is sharpen the saw. Sharpen the saw is number 7. And what he meant by that is you got to take time out. You got to take time out to go read life lessons. You got to go to school, get your degrees. You got to go to the lecture series tomorrow and hear Brother Gil Craig give his stuff. You got to get in the Great Ideas competition. You got to read the lessons. You got to start writing your own. You got to do things that kind of spread the mind out and get the mind thinking about. So you sharpen the saw, getting ready to take over the world. You can't. You got to go exercise sometime. You got to get on the bike and ride around the campus in the morning. You got to do something to get physically and you otherwise get kind of untensioned from just all schoolwork. And that's sharpen the saw. Go to church on Sunday. Go to family night. All the rest of the things. Have a great weekend. Love you all. Read your emails.